You ever notice how the world goes silent exactly when you need someone to stand beside you the most? When you're at your lowest, when you're trying to rise, when you're searching for even one hand to pull you up, suddenly everybody's busy, everybody's distant, everybody's wishing you the best from far away. But here's the truth nobody says out loud. Some of your greatest breakthroughs will happen when no one shows up for you. The world might not clap for you today, but you better believe it'll pay attention tomorrow when the work you did in the dark starts shining louder than any spotlight. So if you're walking this road alone right now, keep going. This is not your punishment. This is your preparation. Let's talk about how to get ahead even when you're the only one fighting for your future. When life gets quiet, most people panic. They think silence means something has gone wrong, something has broken, something is missing. They get uncomfortable when the noise stops, when the applause fades, when the people who used to check in suddenly disappear. But silence is not the enemy. Silence is the classroom where greatness gets built. The world teaches you with noise, but your destiny teaches you in quiet rooms, empty nights, and moments when you feel like nobody sees you at all. There's something powerful about being left alone with your thoughts, something sacred about waking up and realizing no one is coming to push you, no one is coming to check on you, no one is coming to save you, and yet you still choose to rise. That choice right there becomes the beginning of everything. Anyone can move when they have support. Anyone can shine when the room is applauding. But the rare ones, the ones who become legends, they learn how to move without sound, without praise, without validation. They turn silence into a training ground. Silence forces you to meet yourself, not the version the world thinks you are, not the version you perform, but the real one, the one with the doubts, the dreams, the fears, the hunger. And when you're alone long enough, you stop pretending. You start listening to the voice inside you that you've drowned out for years. The voice that's been whispering, you're made for more. The voice that's been trying to pull you toward the life you were meant to live. That voice gets clearer in silence, and that clarity becomes power. Think about every great athlete you admire. Before the stadiums, before the trophies, before the interviews, there were mornings when they trained alone. No cameras, no fans, just sweat hitting the floor and determination sitting heavy in their chests. That's where champions are made. Not in the spotlight, but in the dark. Not in the noise, but in the silence. Silence becomes the place where you practice discipline until it stops feeling like work and starts feeling like identity. Look at any success story you admire and you'll notice the same pattern. There's a season where nobody believed in them, nobody supported them, nobody showed up. But instead of breaking, they built. Instead of crying, they crafted. Instead of waiting, they started. They used the quiet moments to experiment, to make mistakes, to fail privately and rise quietly. People underestimate how valuable it is to fail when no one's watching. When you're alone, you can try things without fear. You can reinvent yourself without judgment. You can grow without pressure. Silence becomes the gym where your future self trains. You learn more in silence than you ever will in a crowd. You learn how to motivate yourself. You learn how to create your own momentum. You learn how to be responsible for your own vision. Most people live their whole lives waiting for someone else to give them permission to begin, but silence forces you to give yourself permission. It teaches you that nobody is obligated to validate you. Nobody is responsible for pushing you. And once you learn to move without needing applause, you become unstoppable. There's a reason many of the greatest ideas in history were born in isolation. It's because silence gives your mind room to stretch. Noise distracts you, pulls you in every direction, makes you forget why you started. But silence focuses you, it sharpens you, it strips away everything that doesn't matter. In silence, you stop trying to impress the world and start trying to improve yourself. And when you improve yourself in the dark, the world eventually has no choice but to notice. There's a story about a kid who used to sneak into his school gym before sunrise. He didn't have a coach pushing him. He didn't have teammates cheering him on. He didn't even have proper shoes. It's just determination and silence. Every morning he'd be in there shooting, sprinting, working on his dribbling, sweating until the floor gleamed. Years later, he made it to the pros. And when reporters asked how he got so good, he said, "Those years when nobody cared, that's when I became who I am." Silence didn't hurt him. Silence trained him. The world glorifies results, but it ignores the quiet season that made those results possible. It shows the success, but hides the silence that shaped it. When you learn to embrace silence instead of fearing it, you give yourself an advantage most people never discover. While others rely on motivation, you rely on discipline. While others wait for approval, you build from instinct. While others look for shortcuts, you look inward and create your own path. Silence teaches you to trust your intuition. When you're alone, the only voice you hear is your own. And at first, that might scare you. But eventually you realize that voice has wisdom. That voice has direction. That voice has the blueprint. You just needed the quiet to hear it. Sometimes you're isolated because you're meant to elevate. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone is supposed to understand your growth. Silence separates you from the noise so you can focus on the transformation. Think of it like a seed underground. Nobody sees it. Nobody checks on it. Nobody applauds it. But in that darkness, in that silence, it's growing roots strong enough to hold up the tree it's destined to become. If someone dug it up too early, it would die. Silence protects your growth until it's strong enough to be seen. When people stop showing up, it's easy to feel abandoned. But what if you're not being abandoned? What if you're being prepared? What if the silence in your life right now is not punishment, but positioning? What if it's clearing out distractions because the next version of you needs absolute focus? What if the loneliness you feel is the universe giving you room to evolve? You get ahead by learning to build without an audience. You get ahead by turning quiet hours into productive hours. You get ahead by treating silence like a personal training camp for your mind, your ambition, and your spirit. When the world goes silent, that's your cue to go inward, to go deeper, to go harder. Silence teaches you resilience. It teaches you to handle life without relying on anyone else's energy. It teaches you to generate your own power. When you learn to thrive in silence, you carry that strength into every room you walk into. You stop chasing validation. You stop fearing rejection. You stop depending on anyone to believe in you because you believed in yourself when nobody else was around. That's the kind of strength that doesn't fade. That's the kind of strength the world can't break. There comes a point in your life when you realize the loudest thing around you isn't the world, it's your doubt. The world has always been noisy. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has commentary. Everybody thinks they know who you should be before you even figure out who you are. But the real battle isn't outside. The real battle is the voice inside your head that either lifts you or limits you. And if you want to rise, if you want to become something more than what your circumstances say you should be, then you've got to build an inner voice so strong that the world's noise becomes nothing but background static. People talk about mindset like it's some magical thing, but mindset is built, not born. It's shaped through storms, through failures, through lonely nights. When you question everything, it grows every time you choose yourself, even when the world doesn't choose you back. That's the voice I'm talking about. The voice that says, I can do this when everything around you screams you won't make it. The voice that whispers, try again when exhaustion says give up. The voice that believes in your future even when your past tries to chain you down. The world will always have something to say. It'll tell you you're too late, too early, too quiet, too loud, too inexperienced, too ambitious. It'll convince you to play small, to stay predictable, to settle. If you don't build your inner voice, the world will build it for you. And trust me, it won't be a voice that pushes you to greatness. It'll be a voice that keeps you comfortable, controlled, and ordinary. And ordinary is not why you're here. Think about every person who changed their life in a massive way. Every one of them had a moment where the world didn't believe in them. Every one of them had a moment where the noise of doubt was so loud they could barely think, but they also had a voice inside them that refused to sit down. That voice said, you're not done. You're not finished. You're not going back. And that voice became the anchor that held them steady when everything else tried to shake them. There's this story about a student who wanted to get into med school. First exam failed, second exam failed. Teachers told him he didn't have the brain for it. Friends told him to give up. Family told him to switch careers. And for a moment, he believed them. The world's noise was louder than anything inside him, but then something happened. He sat alone in his room, turned off the lights, and just listened. Not to the world, not to the negativity, but to himself. Deep inside, he knew he wasn't done. He knew he wasn't failing because he was incapable. He was failing because he was still growing. He repeated a simple sentence every night, I'm not who they say I am. That sentence became a habit. That habit became a belief. That belief became a fire. Today, he's a surgeon. The same people who doubted him now praise him. Nothing about him changed except the strength of his inner voice. You see, the world's noise can shake you, but only your voice can save you. There's real science behind it too. Studies show that the way you talk to yourself directly affects your performance, your decision making, your creativity, even your resilience. Athletes speak to themselves before a big moment. Artists do it before a major performance. Entrepreneurs do it before launching a risky idea. They aren't crazy. They're aligning their inner voice with the outcome they want. They're training their mind to believe long before the world sees the proof. When your inner voice becomes your coach instead of your critic, your entire life changes. You stop waiting for others to motivate you. You stop depending on people to validate you. You stop needing applause just to feel alive. You start moving with purpose even when nobody is watching. You start building habits that reflect your future, not your fears. You start taking risks that your old self would have run from. And most importantly, you start trusting the path that's meant for you, not the one others expect you to take. The world will always underestimate you when you're becoming something new. That's because people judge you by who you are, not who you're becoming. They can only see your present, not your potential. But your inner voice, it sees everything. It sees your growth, your effort, your potential, your possibilities. It knows the nights you didn't quit. It knows the mornings you didn't want to get up, but did anyway. It knows the battles you fight silently that no one will ever hear about. That voice is your power, but you have to feed it. You feed it through repetition. You feed it through discipline. You feed it through intentionally choosing thoughts that elevate you when everything else tries to break you down. You feed it by surrounding yourself with things that inspire instead of drain. You feed it by limiting the world's noise so your own voice has space to grow louder. Sometimes you've got to say no to people just to say yes to yourself. Sometimes you've got to turn off your phone, log out of social media, step away from opinions, and just let your mind breathe. You'd be surprised how loud your inner voice becomes when you stop drowning it in everyone else's opinions. You build an inner voice by showing up for yourself consistently, by keeping promises to yourself, by doing the things you said you would do even when no one is checking. Every time you do that, your voice gets stronger. Every time you rely on yourself instead of waiting for someone else, your voice gets louder. Every time you push past an excuse, your voice gets more confident. And then one day something shifts. The world tries to tell you who you are and you don't believe it. The world tries to box you in and you break out of it. The world tries to doubt you and you just smile because your inner voice has become unshakable. The same noise that used to crush you now sounds like whispers. And your voice, the one you built in the shadows, becomes the dominant sound in your life. When that happens, you don't move with fear. You move with certainty. You don't react. You create. You don't follow. You lead yourself. And the world feels that energy. They sense the difference. You become someone who doesn't need approval because you already approved of yourself. Someone who doesn't get intimidated because you've already fought your biggest battles internally. Someone who doesn't crumble under pressure because you've trained in silence and developed a voice that no noise can overpower. That's when you truly get ahead, not when the world believes in you, but when you believe in you loudly enough to drown out everything else. There's a kind of pain that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream. It doesn't show up with warning. It just slips into your life quietly. The pain of being alone. The pain of realizing people you trusted aren't standing where they promised they would. The pain of reaching out and finding nobody on the other end. That pain can sit in your chest like a weight, heavy and cold, making you question your worth, your path, your direction. But the truth is, that pain is not there to weaken you. It's there to wake you up. It's there to strip away everything unnecessary so you can meet the version of yourself who was buried under the noise and expectations of others. The pain of being alone isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to shape you. Pain is energy. It doesn't disappear. It transforms, and you get to choose the direction of that transformation. You can let it sink you, or you can let it spark something inside you that refuses to die. People don't grow from comfort. Nobody finds their strength while surrounded by applause. Growth happens in uncomfortable rooms, silent nights, empty phone screens, and moments when you feel invisible. That's when you're forced to dig into places you never had to explore before. That's where real power forms, in the cracks of your broken expectations. Sometimes loneliness is the only thing strong enough to break your old limits. When you're alone, you start to see clearly. You start to understand who really matters, who was temporary camouflage, who was draining your spirit without you noticing. You start hearing your own thoughts again, not the ones shaped by other people's opinions, but the ones that come from the deepest part of you, the part that remembers your dreams, your calling. your identity. Being alone reveals the truth, and the truth rebuilds you. Think about people who changed their lives in unbelievable ways. They didn't rise because they had a crowd cheering for them. They rose because they had something inside them that wouldn't let the loneliness swallow them. There's a story about a young artist rejected by every label, sleeping on floors, working night shifts, recording music in borrowed studios. He said there were nights when it felt like the universe forgot him. But instead of letting that weight suffocate him, he used it. Every rejection became fuel. Every silent night became a canvas. Every lonely moment became another reason to prove to himself that he wasn't done. Today, the world knows his name, but nobody saw the nights when loneliness was his only companion. You can't avoid pain, but you can redirect it. When you turn it into fuel, it becomes the engine that pushes you through walls. The pain of being alone becomes focus. It becomes hunger. It becomes clarity. You realize you don't need people to validate your path. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't need every hand holding yours. You just need the strength to hold your own hand and keep moving. There's real science behind this too. Studies show that people who experience periods of isolation develop stronger problem-solving skills, better emotional resilience, and deeper self-awareness. Not because loneliness is pleasant, but because it forces you to confront your own capacity. It pushes you into the driver's seat of your life. When nobody else is around, you become the only source of momentum, and that kind of self-created momentum is unstoppable. Pain is pressure, and pressure creates diamonds. People forget that diamonds don't form in comfort. They form in darkness, under intense force, in places nobody sees. You're not breaking. You're forming. You're not losing. You're shedding. You're not abandoned. You're being refined. When the pain of being alone hits, don't let it sit on your shoulders like a burden. Let it light a fire under you. Let it remind you that you're stronger than the season you're in. Let it push you toward the version of yourself who won't need to beg for support, who won't crumble when people disappear, who won't lose direction when the world grows quiet. Because once you learn how to use that pain instead of carrying it, there is nothing left that can hold you back. There's a certain magic in moving silently, a kind of power that only shows itself when you stop broadcasting every step and start building in the shadows. People think the world needs to see their progress to make it real. They think every dream has to be announced before it's even born. But real growth doesn't happen in front of an audience. Real growth happens in quiet rooms, late nights, early mornings, and moments where it's just you, your vision, and that fire inside your chest that refuses to fade. Moving quietly doesn't mean you're moving slowly. It means you're building something so solid, so unshakable, that by the time the world sees it, it's already undeniable. There's a certain rhythm to working consistently. It's not dramatic. It's not glamorous. It's repetition. It's discipline. It's showing up even on days you'd rather disappear. It's putting in the work when nobody is clapping, nobody is watching, nobody even knows. And that's where the strength comes from. Consistency is the foundation of every breakthrough because it trains your mind to keep going even when the results aren't loud yet. The world sees success as a moment, but real success is built through hundreds of unnoticed hours, uncelebrated victories, and private battles you win quietly. People forget that the biggest transformations happen in silence. Think about nature. A seed grows underground long before it breaks the surface. A caterpillar transforms inside a cocoon before the world ever sees the butterfly. The same thing happens with people. You grow internally long before the world sees anything external. And if you rush the process by seeking validation too early, you can ruin what's forming inside you. Quiet seasons aren't punishment, they're preparation. They're the phase where you tighten your craft, sharpen your mindset, and build your confidence from the inside out. The world loves noise. It loves attention, drama, announcement, spectacle. But noise doesn't build legacy. Noise doesn't build mastery. Noise doesn't build legends. Legends aren't made when the cameras are rolling. They're made when no one is paying attention. That's why the people who shock the world the most are the ones nobody saw coming. They weren't busy talking about their goals. They were busy becoming someone capable of achieving them. There's a story about a young developer who spent 3 years quietly creating a new app. No hype, no social media countdown, no sharing screenshots every week. He just worked every day consistently. People thought he was wasting his time, Some laughed, some said he should focus on something more realistic, but he kept building in silence. Then one day, out of nowhere, he launched it, and within 48 hours, it went viral worldwide. The same people who doubted him were suddenly asking how he did it. But the truth is, he didn't do it. He built it quietly, patiently, relentlessly. And when the time came, the world felt the shockwave. When you move quietly, people can't attack what they can't see. They can't interfere with plans they don't know about. They can't discourage dreams they don't hear. Silence protects your energy, your ideas, and your momentum. It gives you space to make mistakes, improve, and try again without judgment. It allows you to evolve without pressure. The most powerful version of you is the one that grows without needing witnesses. And then, when you finally step into the light, you bring something real, something refined, something finished. That's when the world gets loud. That's when people start saying, where did this come from? That's when they start calling you an overnight success, even though you spent months or years grinding when nobody even cared. That reaction, that shock only happens because you stayed silent long enough to build something that speaks for itself. When you work consistently and move quietly, you're not hiding, you're preparing, you're protecting your purpose. You're giving yourself space to become great instead of forcing the world to believe you're great before you are. And when the time comes to reveal what you've created, you won't need to shout. Your results will do the talking. Your work will make the noise, and the world will have no choice but to listen. Because the loudest people rarely shock the world, but the quiet ones often do. There comes a moment in every person's life when you realize nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to hand you the blueprint. Nobody is coming to carry your weight. Nobody is coming to fix the pieces you dropped along the way. At first, that truth feels harsh. It feels cold. It feels like the world just turned its back on you. But if you sit with that truth long enough, something incredible happens. You begin to rise. You begin to understand that relying on yourself isn't a punishment. It's a superpower. Because when you learn to stand on your own, there's nothing left that can knock you down. Self-reliance is not about isolating yourself or pretending you don't need anyone ever again. It's about discovering the part of you that's been waiting to lead, the part of you that knows how to fight even when you're tired, how to move even when you're scared, how to keep going even when everything in you wants to stop. That strength doesn't show up when life is easy. It shows up when life corners you, when your comfort gets stripped, when you're forced to choose between collapsing or building yourself again from scratch. Every strong person you admire had a season where they had to depend on nothing but their own will. There's a story about a kid who grew up surrounded by chaos, no support, no guidance, no real direction. Teachers gave up on him, friends drifted away, relatives said he wouldn't be anything, but something inside him refused to accept that story. He made a decision that if no one was going to build him, he would build himself. He studied alone, trained alone, planned alone. Years later, he became a leader in his field. When people asked how he did it, he said, I stopped waiting for someone to carry me and taught myself how to walk. His strength didn't come from others. It came from within. When you learn to rely on yourself, you stop being afraid of losing people. You stop being scared of doors closing. You stop panicking when life changes direction because you know deep down that you can rebuild anything you lose. You can navigate any storm. You can bounce back from any setback. That kind of confidence changes the way you breathe, the way you act, the way you move through the world. It makes you unshakable. The world becomes a lot less intimidating when you realize you've already survived everything that was meant to break you. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every betrayal. They didn't destroy you. They taught you. They shaped you. They carved out a version of you that knows how to endure. Self-reliance is not built from comfort. It's built from everything that didn't go according to plan. It's built from the gaps where nobody showed up. It's built from every moment you felt alone and still kept going. You start to develop this inner stability, this backbone of steel. You don't crumble when people leave. You don't fold when life hits you unexpectedly. You don't freeze when the pressure gets real. You've already been through heavier nights, deeper fears, harder choices, and you made it on your own. That memory becomes your armor. You carry it into every challenge, every opportunity, every new chapter. Self-reliance doesn't make you cold. It makes you centered. It makes you grounded. It makes you powerful in a way that doesn't need to shout. People can feel it on you, that quiet strength, that inner certainty, that knowing. It's the kind of strength that doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It doesn't need applause. It moves from conviction, not insecurity. And once you taste that kind of strength, you realize something important. If you can stand alone, you can stand anywhere. If you can lift yourself, you can lift anything. If you can rely on yourself, you become unbreakable. If you're alone right now, let me tell you something. This is the part of your story that becomes somebody else's motivation someday. This is the chapter where you learn your power. This is the season where the world sleeps on you, so it can one day wake up shocked by you. Keep moving, keep believing, keep building, even if you're the only one in your corner, because the day will come when everyone else finally sees what you saw in yourself all along.